Welcome to this week's session of DappRadar Market Movers. My name is Pedro, and today we have Boris Ribo, part of our research team. How are you doing today, Boris?
Well, Pedro, always nice to be here.
Perfect. Um, Good. So today we'll be discussing one of the most exciting topics of our industry, blockchain games. As always, remember, we will be recording the session for you to catch up later. And if you miss any of our previous shows, don't worry, you can still get them on our YouTube channel. So there's a lot of ground to cover, so let's begin. Despite being trapped in what can be considered a bear scenario in the crypto industry, certain categories like NFTs and games appear to be thriving. There are important events happening at the macro level that are affecting positively these categories. So let's start by analyzing, Boris, which kind of events you have learned that are impacting the games in a positive way?
Well, there's a lot to talk about, as you mentioned. I mean, first of all, games by themselves uh, are make up 52% of blockchain activity along on all chains combined, and they attract an enormous amount of users. All this activity naturally comes with major investments, and in just January 2022 alone, is that we had $1 billion invested into blockchain games and infrastructure. That's a quarter of total investments that were raised in 2021, which was 4 billion. This clearly shows the increased demand, not only from players, but also from venture capitalists and smart money, as it were, into the blockchain gaming. As itself, we had since not January, sorry, since August 2022, I apologize, since August 2021, we had the amount of games grew by 62%. I mean, we had slightly above 400 at 421 games on all dApps. And in January 2022, and it feels a little weird to say January 2022, but anyway, in January 2022, we had 682 games in total. So the market is actively increasing. Amongst them, one of the crowning achievement is DeFi Kingdoms. It's generated 1.6 billion worth of dollars in transactions alone, which is 243% more than Axie did. And the app currently holds the 60% of total value locked in on the Harmony blockchain, which is 775 million. Just crazy numbers all around. Polygon also had a very good run. Crazy Defense Heroes is the second most used dApp on the network. Sorry, getting
Yeah,
messages.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a few things happening on different fronts. What is very positive for the industry is the amount of capital that you mentioned. 1 billion just in 1 month. To put in perspective, in 2021, which was already the biggest year in terms of capital raised, it already had gets to 25% of it. And we're seeing the importance, the involvement of Animoca brands, an important type of VC organization, becoming more involved in the space, becoming more relevant. And they are trying to get more exposure into different projects. They're investing in different type of projects across different blockchains. So this again gives more ammunition to projects to continue building. One example is Ancient 8. Another one is Plot X, which is infrastructure for blockchain games to run. So all in all, these macro events are signaling very positive things for blockchain game as a whole. And other thing that I consider very relevant that you mentioned is that as of now, the number of active blockchain game dApps that are tracked by DappRadar increased 62% from August last year. And we're now tracking 682 active game dApps, which is again 60% higher than it was 6 months ago. So it's not only that the usage is increasing, because if we remember at the end of last year, blockchain games were accounting for around 49% of the industry activity. And this usage has grown even further to almost 53%. So the usage is increasing. More users are getting excited with blockchain games. They're using them more. And big players like venture capital type of organizations are noting this, and they are pouring more and more money. So this again will create a profound impact in the category. They will bring more capital. They will bring more knowledge to build around. And I think this is also a scenario that is being translated into, let's say, traditional players, because there were important investments that happened in January uh, around big players like Microsoft, Sony, or Take Two. Would you like to explain us a bit further into that?
Yeah, I want to make a nice transition of why and when. So one of the biggest methods of raising money is on inside games as well, and what is an important investment vehicle, as we all know, is NFTs. In January alone, funds. So that is some serious money, and of course, a lot of that is for video games. Naturally, traditional game developers and game publishers want a piece of that pie, and so they're also trying to move into the traditional. They're trying to move into the blockchain gaming scene, and I've seen the pioneer at the time for the longest time was Ubisoft. Um, they tried to, as far as I remember, the last NFT they created for Ghost Recon, one of the latest Ghost Recon games, and that unfortunately did not go over well. Uh,
Yeah,
there's kind of
let's yeah, just to put into context quickly our audience, like last October, Ubisoft, this French company behind important gaming franchises like Far Cry or Assassin's Creed, tried to embed NFTs into one of its popular franchise, which is Tom Clancy's, and in this case, Ghost Recon game. However, yeah, as you said, it met with hostile critics with the Ghost Recon's fan base, which is, of course, one of the most, let's say, tangible challenges that the blockchain industry is presented with.
so gaming industry. I'm an avid gamer myself, and the gaming industry, the traditional one, is in a bit of a strange spot. I mean, on one side, it is a massive industry. I mean, we're talking north of $200 billion dollars worth of value that the whole industry
Yeah.
has, and has around 2.3, 2.4 active users worldwide. So there's a lot of people playing video games, and and this is the industry that is bigger than movies, it's bigger than traditional sports, and all the other industries combined, and it's growing just at a nearly exponential pace.
Yeah.
Naturally, a lot of that also happens on the blockchain. And the traditional gaming industry, it's kind of in a weird spot. I mean, you mentioned the acquisitions made by Microsoft, Sony, and Take Two. I know that Microsoft was a very controversial purchase by them, that they acquired Activision Blizzard. The company itself, known for smash hits like the Call of Duty series, World of Warcraft, they had Overwatch, but recently well, there's unfortunately no nice way of putting it, but not only have their sales suffered for all their long-lasting legacy franchises. I mean, World of Warcraft has been around for what, more than a decade now.
Yeah.
All their Diablo one, I was also kind of disappointed in that game that kind of went nowhere. And the game that they were really hoping would strike gold was Overwatch, which unfortunately I can't speculate what was the issues behind the scenes, but they kind of dropped the ball in there, and if we look at Twitch streams, it's not even in the top 10. So Overwatch kind of fell off everybody's radar, and they quickly had to scrap the sequel for Overwatch 2. So now Blizzard only has one big game that is raking in all the money, the cash cow, which is Call of Duty. And the latest one, if I remember correctly, Call of Duty 2019 was their most successful release yet, selling over 4.4 million copies. And Warzone is just it's a gift that keeps on giving. The reason I'm mentioning all this is that unfortunately the company, besides having Call of Duty, it doesn't have anything interesting at the moment, and it's also been embroiled in some sexual harassment controversy, which we're not going to go into it, but it pressed a lot on the value of the company, and the stock has declined significantly. So this is why the purchase, and the gaming industry is trying to find itself and trying to feel out where is it going to go, because everybody tried to do battle royales, and that market is very saturated. So people don't know what the next big thing is. And so they're seeing the numbers that the blockchain games are generating. And so naturally, they're thinking, well, how can we get a piece of that pie? Unfortunately, I can say partially from personal experience and the other people that I've talked to, is that people who are in charge of big companies, and well, not the development studios, but the people who are responsible to the stakeholders and people who are in charge of the companies, they have a very conservative viewpoint because they have a lot of responsibility in front of the stakeholders. They have to generate money. They have to make sure that the company is running efficiently. And they do not like to take a lot of risks, because spending a lot of money on a failed project will unfortunately reflect badly on the performance of the company. So they're trying to get into NFTs now, and it hasn't been very successful because they don't understand how to implement it successfully. And the gaming community has been, well, the reception from the gaming community has been very lukewarm as of yet. I mean, if you go on Twitter, there are a lot of people who just vehemently against putting NFTs into their games. The last campaign that I saw was in the upcoming game Stalker 2. They wanted to, if you buy an NFT, you get your own character or your own faction or whatnot, and the whole community just canceled the pre-orders, mass flagged, and ratioed the Twitter. So it's a challenge, but it's a challenge I think people will overcome with more understanding of how to organically implement NFTs into the gaming loop as a whole.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it makes a lot of sense for these companies to try out. Like thinking about Worldcraft, of course, I bet this was the inspiration for the virtual worlds that we are seeing popping out, like the sandbox, for instance. So, and you also mentioned Call of Duty, which is a game I think makes total sense to embed NFTs in the game. Why? Because it can create a marketplace, it can monetize, and it's one of the most played games. So it makes total sense. Same goes with Sony and Bungie, which Bungie is creators behind Halo, one of the most successful franchises. And when you think about blockchain games, about space exploration, you have already Echoes of the Empire on Immutable X and Star Atlas on Solana. So it makes sense also to take that road, and why not explore the possibility of adding another competition to those. So yeah, I mean, that's very nice to see. I don't know where it end up for these big players, but certainly the interest in blockchain games is imminent, is on the rise. The amount of job job positions opened with Web3 in traditional players is increasing. So yeah, we are seeing an increase in adoption. And why we're seeing this? You mentioned a couple of interesting games at the beginning, Crazy Defense Heroes and DeFi Harmony. Those are blockchain games that are not amongst the current most played games, but still we are seeing increased interest in those. We talked about the macro indicators especially about the $1 billion invested in blockchain games and infrastructure in January alone. So let's jump into the on-chain metrics and let's review why are these VCs interested in blockchain games? Why are these happening? The first thing that stands out is that the top games are retaining their audience, which is one of the most important indicators for blockchain games, right? Well, for games in general, sorry. How well a game can retain their player base is basically the most important factor for their success. And we're seeing this happening in the top 5 games. Axie Infinity, Splinterlands, Alien Worlds, Farmer's World, and Upland have not only retained their audience successfully in January compared to December numbers, but they have grown them further. Well, besides Alien World, the other 4 games slightly increased their audience from December. But that's not it. We're seeing more and more options, which is very good to see, like more distribution, more diversification, and more competition across games itself. One game that is currently standing out is DeFi Kingdoms. DeFi Kingdoms is probably the perfect example of GameFi, which is this trend which can be sometimes confused with play to earn. We have discussed it a couple of times in this space, but GameFi is basically the gamification of DeFi. How can I embed DeFi into game mechanics to make it, let's say, more entertaining? Let's be clear and honest. Um, so, yeah, DeFi Kingdoms is a GameFi games that runs on Harmony, which is a scaling solution, a layer 1 scaling solution. But technically speaking, DeFi Kingdom is basically a DeFi protocol consisting of smart contracts that enable a decentralized exchange, staking, and liquidity pools, and also an NFT marketplace disguised as a tavern, a bank, or a market. So it's basically how I can present these features of DeFi features, but disguised as games. Think about PancakeSwap, a DeFi protocol that has all these features together, but with a playable interface where users can basically go into the bank in the kingdom and stake their money, which is funnier than or more entertaining than basically clicking the stake button. On top of that, DeFi Kingdom has NFTs, which are these NFT heroes that can be purchased, of course, in the tavern, which is the NFT marketplace, using UL, which is DeFi Kingdom's native token. All in all, DeFi Kingdoms is basically the most essential Dapp in the Harmony blockchain. This game is attracting over 22,000, almost 25,000 unique active wallets per day on average in January, which is a very nice number already. But there are 2 metrics that are very important to DeFi Kingdoms. The first one is, as a DeFi heavy protocol, it's holding around 60% of the entire blockchain's TVL, which is absolutely impressive. DeFi Kingdoms hold around 800 million of the 1.3 million that is locked in Harmony. But also, you mentioned this, Boris, early. DeFi Kingdom generated over 1.6 billion. I mean, we're talking about 1.6 billion. It's massive numbers in transaction volume just in January. Just in 30 days, 1.6 billion by a game. It's very impressive. It's even 250% more than Axie Infinity, which we are talking about something. And in total, from the total industry, from the total blockchain game industry, the transaction volumes that DeFi Kingdom is being managing, it's holding around 40% of the total industry, which is absolutely impressive. So I don't know, have you had a chance to play around DeFi Kingdoms?
Personally, not at the moment. It's not that I'm not interested in blockchain games as well, but it's for me, I'm a more of a traditional pardon the jargon, but I'm a boomer shooter and a real-time strategy kind of guy. I'm still physically stuck in the 90s. So when something along the lines of those games comes up on a blockchain, I'll be one of the first to jump on the trip.
So
But
there are a lot of games in another chain that it's that you will like, and we're talking about Polygon. Polygon is an Ethereum sidechain, which has increased its usage a lot. Actually, according to our industry report of January, Polygon increased its usage almost 75%, surpassing 200 unique active wallets per day on average. And this growth was supported by
Wow.
games. Which games of the Polygon ecosystem you want to talk about, Boris?
let's see. So
You mentioned Crazy
Peg-
Defense Hero, I think.
yeah, there's Crazy Defense Heroes. There's Pegasus. There's Arc 8 and Sunflower Heroes.
Yeah. So Crazy Defense Heroes, for you people in the audience that you're not familiar with, it's a tower defense game. Basically, it's a strategy game where you place trading cards presented as, yeah, like towers that are defending your fort. Um, this game is actually quite intriguing. Why? Because it's available on mobile. You can download it straight away on your app or Google Store, and you can start playing, and you can start earning, which is even better. Crazy Defense Hero attracted an average of 40,000 unique active wallets on January per day. And actually, it became the second most used app in the Polygon ecosystem behind QuickSwap, which is the de facto decentralized exchange of Polygon. But the Polygon ecosystem is flashing signals of an increased activity coming from the gaming side. It's not only about Crazy Defense Heroes. You mentioned other games like Arcade, which is
Yeah.
also very interesting. Arcade is a game that I would recommend at least trying. It's also available on mobile,
Was it
and it's
developed by?
basically
Yeah, I was just gonna say, wasn't it developed by Animonica Brands?
yeah, correct. It was developed by Gamey, which is a subsidiary actually of Animoca Brands, and you see this is also correlated. Like it comes a full circle. Animoca Brands start investing in Polygon. They created Polygon Studios, which is a branch of Polygon that it's solely dedicated to develop games. And Gaming, which is a subsidiary of Animoca Brands, joined with Polygon Studios, and they launched Arcade last year. So as you can see, it all comes into fruition. So yeah. It's a game developed by Animoca Brands, let's say, and it's available on mobile. It's basically mini games that you can play while commuting, waiting in the waiting room of a doctor or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you can earn while doing nothing. So Arcade attracted almost 60,000 unique wallets in January, with an average of around 13,000, which makes it the third most played game in the Polygon ecosystem. And another game that is worth mentioning in the Polygon is Sunflower Farmers. And this game made a lot of noise in January. Sunflower Farmers is a farming game in Polygon again. But due to a bug in the smart contracts, users were able to exploit the farming contract. So basically, it attracted a lot of bot activity. And this bot activity basically congested the Polygon network. And when a network is congested, of course, the gas fees are through the roof. So this is what happened with Polygon. Uh, of course, we're not talking about gas fees at Ethereum levels. We're talking about dollars only. But if you're using Polygon, you're gonna complain about paying $10 for gas fee. So I'm not paying $10 for gas fees in Polygon. No way. So
wait,
Sunflower.
is the game still active then?
Well, the developers shut down the game temporarily. You can still, well, I wouldn't say play, but yeah, you can still interact with the version of the game. They are working on how to relaunch it. So yeah, we're probably going to see the second version of Sunflower Farmers soon. Yeah, and to close out on Polygon, we see also Pegaxi, which is uh, I would say a blend between Axie and Cedron. It's generating a lot of transaction volumes also. Rev Racing, which is this racing game, but Polygon also has Abigochi, Phantom Galaxies, Cetron, a trading card game of Doctor Who, and upcoming games like Galaxy Fight Club and Riot Racers. So all in all, Polygon has become a very complete ecosystem in terms of game. And yeah, so finally, to probably close out and leave some time for questions from the audience, I want to mention finally BCS. And BCS has shifted from a DeFi chain to a game reaching blockchain games. This movement began probably last summer with Crypto Blades and Crypto Bay. Unfortunately, we already know what happened to this game. But this time it appears that there is one option uh, in BSC that is going to break the curse. And we're talking about Bomb Crypto. Bomb Crypto is a blockchain based game inspired by the classic gaming franchise Bomberman. I don't know. Did you play Bomberman?
Of course, I remember. I still had it on my old Game Boy. You know, the gray brick, the very first one. And I actually bought my first Game Boy. It came with two games, Super Mario World and Bomberman. And I played the absolutely like all my teenage, well, not teenage years, my young years from like I think I was 8 years old at the time were spent with that Game Boy brick. So yeah, I have fond memories of that game.
Yeah, so basically, Bomberman is totally inspired in that game, and where each bomb hero is an NFT that can be upgraded and traded within the game's marketplace. In this bomb game, basically, your NFTs are trying to, well, yeah, get the rewards, which are calculated in Bitcoin, which is the game's native currency. And one interesting thing that we are seeing is that the correlation between the price of Bitcoin and the game's usage, is separating itself. And this is something that did not happen in previous iteration of BCS games like CryptoBlades or CryptoPay, where the price of the native token drastically uh, dictated the pace of the game. Basically, when the price of skill or when the price of what was that I cannot remember the token of CryptoBait, but when the price of skill or the other token when plummeted down, the usage of those games basically went to zero. And this is something that is not happening with Bomb Crypto. The price of Bitcoin, of course, following the pace of the market, has plummeted around 60% since November. Still, the usage of the game is increasing, growing 19% from December, and attracting almost 40,000 unique active wallets per day. And actually, Bomb Crypto is now one of the most played games in the entire industry. So it's good to see that BCS is revamping its game option. Um, so all in all, good. And before we, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, to me, I haven't played the game personally, but you having mentioned those two factoids right now, to me that's actually very inspiring because that signifies that despite the how to put it nicely, the low profitability of the game, the actual fundamental, the intrinsic entertainment of the game relies with the actual gameplay.
Exactly.
So that's a very good sign so that people are coming to play the game to actually play it, and they're getting rewarded on the side. And maybe it's also coincident, depending how they set up the reward system there. Perhaps there's some kind of transactions within the game. So if the value of the token goes down, maybe there's a lot more transactions happening. Therefore, it drives the overall usage and people playing the game in total.
No,
So
actually, that's a very good point. Very, very good point. And actually, the game is expected to launch a couple of new game modes, right?
Mhm.
So probably it became more and more popular. But yeah, it's very good point that people appears to be enjoying the game organically, like genuinely they like the game. It's not like, okay, I'm here just for the profits. I'm also enjoying the game, which is, of course, the most important aspect of play to earn. How to spend your time and earn in the process. Before we jump out to the question section, there are a couple of things that we should expect on the upcoming months. Illuvium's closed beta. Illuvium is one of the most anticipated blockchain games ever. It will run on Immutable X. It's labeled as a AAA game, and the game will allow a limited number of qualified players to test one of the game functionalities. It will happen probably end of February. And Virtual Worlds Alpha, we had the sandbox last week. Today we have Nifty Island, which I recommend. Log in, create accounts, test and interact with Nifty, probably getting an NFT, getting around this virtual world, which is basically an open virtual world intended for social purposes. So yeah, why not test it? Good. So let's. I see a hand raised. So friends, do you want to come to the audience and ask your question?
hello.
You need to jump out to the audience so you can speak. We have also Kusling.
Hey guys, that
Yeah,
was a
Kusli.
great conversation. Thanks for sharing the information. And Boris, I feel like I'm in the same boat as you of being that traditional gamer, which is a funny word to use, but I've been exploring the blockchain space. I work at a gaming media company, and DeFi Kingdoms is a great example because I was trying to get into that, and just getting Harmony was such a pain in the butt to get it in my wallet and to try to start playing the game. As we see a lot more of these of games, and I know a lot of companies are trying to make it easier to onboard new users, but do you think that absolute value number of users is a success metric for games these days, or is that like the transaction value almost more important because you don't necessarily need a lot of users anymore to have a financially successful game? How would you guys maybe classify that, especially tracking the statistics of users and finances over time?
Ooh, can I take this one, Pedro? Because this actually goes a lot into how
Yeah.
mobile games are
Go,
monetized.
go, go.
So, as you know, within every from my experience so far, what I've seen in blockchain games, they're heavily modeled after mobile games. And in mobile games, you generally have a lot of users or free-to-play games where you have a lot of users who don't spend a lot of money and they're free boating. But you have your cash cows, and those are essentially like the top 10% that account for literally most.
Oh no.
Oh my God,
We lost
lost
the right at the
connection.
exciting part.
Yeah, damn. Well, I'm pretty sure he will join. In the meanwhile, I'll give you my opinion.
Sure,
And
sure.
by the way, yeah, Harmony is, to be fair, it's not the easiest blockchain to get involved with. Um, I would definitely recommend reading DappRadar articles. We have a couple of articles talking about DeFi Kingdom, and how to smooth this process to get one, which is the Harmony native token, how to exchange it for UL and so on. So yeah, I will share a couple of articles with you, man.
Great, thank you.
I am back. I apologize. The weather is very windy here in Central Europe, so there's some
No worries.
electrical and internet outages. But I'll try to summarize what I want to say quickly. So yes, the issue is that the majority of the people that play the games, they're just there to play the game. They're not the major earners. Majority of it comes from the cash cows who account for literally 90% of all the value going into the games. And taking stuff like Warzone, for example, from Call of Duty, most of the people play it for the free-to-play title, and then there'll be 10% of players that literally buy every skin, every game pass, like just literally buy everything that the game has to offer. So the key to monetizing games, it's a twofold approach. You of course want to hold the attention of the player base for as long as possible, because the longer they play, the higher the chance that they will spend money. But you're absolutely also correct that you don't need many people to essentially keep the game viable, as long as, hypothetically, it's rarely the case, but hypothetically, if you have your whole audience just consists completely of whales and they buy everything that you have to offer, then yeah, you can essentially sustain a whole infrastructure just on a very small user base. But again, due to the way the bell curve works, those people are very rare. There'll be an outlier. So naturally, you strive for a very large and expansive user base to have as many whales or those cash cow users as possible.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but at the same time, I would say that usage is critical, because on one hand, it gives visibility to the game, and you want to be involved in a bigger community, right? It's fun. And for example, in virtual worlds like World Wide Web, um, or some of these games that brings memories of the of RuneScape. Of course, it's very fun when the community is bigger. um, Although the case of games like DeFi Kingdoms or Pegaxi, for example, where the transaction volume is kind of, well, it's a very important metric. It's not necessarily that you need to have 100 daily active players, but at some point, success is measured by the number of users. Imagine X Infinity being played by 5 people and transacting $20 million. Yeah, okay, you're getting the money, but you're not getting the important message, which is how to onboard users and how to bring mass adoption through games. So, of course, volumes are very important, especially for certain games. But usage is probably always the king in terms of games.
Yeah, and I guess like a counterpoint, right, is the philosophical, approach to what an indie developer would do, right? Obviously most games that are made and distributed go unplayed, and so even if a small indie dev can, get 10,000 users, right, at some point, and they're financially supported, right, because they're able to monetize through this mechanisms, then that could be seen as a stronger success than even we might see the rise of more indie dev style shops, but they might need support because tokenizing and launching on platforms and getting on blockchains could be a big barrier to entry for them. So I see it as a positive, and maybe of course mass adoption would be nice, but I'm sure many great indie titles throughout the years that haven't had follow-on, like follow-ups, or have died out, but since then, but like maybe Boris was saying about Bomberman, right, back in the day, has such fond memories, right? That could also be part of that intrinsic value of just playing a great game and having an indie dev launch an amazing title, right?
Definitely, and this is also what the blockchain industry is craving for, like having this type of games that can be actually enjoyed by let's call it a niche, and then become part of what may be a cultural game in 10 years when we look back and say, okay, this was the first indie blockchain game that was created, and probably this is what we are striving for.
Awesome, thanks. All right, I don't want to take up time if anyone else is talking, so
No.
appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks for your question.
So, do
Cool.
we have any more takers? Do we have any more raised hands? Yeah, I apologize again for dipping out there. As I said, we're having some very strong wind currents here, and there's been some trees falling over, power lines have been cut, so the internet is fortunately not in the best state at this point.
No worries. Hopefully, you made it to the end.
Yeah.
Good. So, if there is any other question, I want to thank you, Boris, as always, for your insights. It was a very pleasant conversation. I don't know if you have any closing statements.
For me, it's just my 2 cents on the whole NFTs in gaming thing, because a lot of well, the most important thing to making a game or having a game be financially successful is making a good game that people want to buy and people want to play. And then naturally, as a result of that, people will buy your game, and that's how you make money. Then if the game, the fundamentals of the game, the actual gameplay loop is successful, then you can monetize it. Again, that's an art and a science in of itself. But that also has to be done in a very delicate manner so as to not upset the people, that they don't feel that they're getting ripped off, as happened in some AAA game. I have to go back to Call of Duty, but I remember there's been a big backlash with the Call of Duty World War II title, not the last one of the release, not Vanguard, but the one before that, as
Yep.
that the loot boxes fiasco is very egregious. And but there have been using completely the same style of, let's have game passes, let's have cosmetics. But when they started implementing that into Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, it's been a completely, although the game itself fundamentally is the same, but the way they used it was a lot more effective, and people were very happy to give Activision their money. And I see this as a direct parallel of NFTs. So anytime somebody wants to make a blockchain game, first of all, the game has to be fun to play. It has to be interesting. It has to, um, captivate people with its fundamental
Yep.
mechanics. Once that you have that as your foundation, I think people should start. And naturally, we're in a nascent phase right now. We're going to be experimenting, and there's going to be a lot more flops than it's going to be successes. But somebody will get the formula right, how to organically introduce NFTs into the gameplay loop so that people feel rewarded and there's a financial incentive for them. And there's nothing like I see a lot of criticisms from the traditional gaming media and a lot of gamers out there that they NFTs bring nothing, and they're absolutely no point in them being in video games. But the same argument could be, like, for example, Twitch streaming. You say, well, what's the point of watching somebody play a video game when I can play a video game? But then that developed into a culture of its own. Sometimes you watch somebody who is interesting or funny, somebody who's good at the game, somebody who, just because they're your friend or they're interesting or whatnot. And that developed into a complete culture of its own. So why not NFTs? The question is just having to doing it right and finding the secret sauce of how it all works. And that just comes through experimentation. And I think this coming decade is going to be the experimentation of blockchain games and NFTs. Whoever gets it, he's going to crack the mother lode.
Very nice. Yeah, I think people don't like NFTs because they don't truly understand them. They don't truly understand the ownership factor that owning an NFT really brings into the table, right? And we have explained the similarity between traditional, the comparison. What would it be to own an NFT in Fortnite or on Call of Duty again? So hopefully we will see more and more companies involved in the blockchain gaming industry. Well, that's it for today. Thanks everyone from the audience for being supportive and being with us, active with the DappRadar community. And remember, each week at the same time, market movers discussing different crypto topics, and the DappRadar Meet sessions, where Ian talks down with relevant projects in the industry in his AMA weekly events. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and social media channels on Twitter, Discord, and YouTube. And that would be all for today. Thanks again. Enjoy your evening and have an amazing weekend. That's all for me. Thank you,
All the
and
best.
bye-bye.
And thank you for having me again. All the best.
Thank you, Boris. Bye-bye.